absolutely delighted and so excited that we're going to be speaking with Catherine Dixon and Rachael Marsden, or Cat and Raz as they like to be called, who have just come back from cycling more than 18,000 miles across 5 continents and raised almost £35,000 for Oxfam and the Motor Neuron Disease Association, cycling around the globe on Alice, their pink tandem, in 263 days, 7 hours and 7 minutes, beating the male world record of 281 days. So Kat and Raz, absolutely amazing to have you on the Tough Girl podcast. I can't wait to hear more about your incredible journey. But before we kick off, I'd love for you both to just introduce yourselves separately and tell everybody just a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and what your background is. Kat, if you'd like to start, that would be amazing.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, it's great to be here. So I'm Kat Dixon. I've obviously just finished riding around the world, so that's took me a little bit of time. But what I do sort of in regular life, I guess, is that I'm a solicitor by background, and currently I run the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and that's a job I got when I was actually cycling around the world. I was interviewed in the States and managed to secure a job for when I got back.
Oh, fantastic. I love it. It's brilliant. And what about you, Raz? What do you do and what's your background?
I'm Raz, and I have been working as a specialist nurse for running the M&D Care Research Centre in Oxford for about 18 years now. But just before I left, I was made a nurse consultant. So that's what I do. And since I've been back, I've been doing that work in the Oxford M&D Centre.
Fantastic. And how did you two initially meet? How long have you been friends for?
We both cycled. Again, it was a charity ride. We cycled from London to Paris, and it was 4 days, Kat? It was a 4-day ride, and we met on that and then started cycling more together. And that was only about 3 and a bit years ago.
So the big question is, whose idea was it to cycle around the world?
Well, I think it was sort of my initial idea, I suppose, in the sense that it was something that I'd always wanted to do. And we were doing some cycling together. We started chatting and said, wouldn't it be great to cycle around the world? And it sort of morphed into, well, why not on a tandem? And then why not try and set the world record? And then off we went.
So Raz, when Kat sort of first brought this up, what was going through your head initially?
Well, when she used to talk about how she'd like to cycle around the world, I used to think, that's cool, you should do that, go for it. And then she said, well, how about you join me? And I just said yes. I tend to say yes first and then think later, but I have never regretted that decision.
So in terms of sort of the planning and the preparation, did you divide it up and have sort of specific roles that you were doing and that you were focusing on, and how long were you planning and preparing for this trip?
I think we very naturally have very different skills, and it just kind of naturally kind of divided itself, how we worked things out and how we worked our way through things. So it took us about a year to plan, and the jobs and things just divided themselves naturally to how we work, how we think, really.
What about you, Kat? What would you say your skills are in terms of the planning and the preparation?
Yeah, so I was sort of heavily involved with doing the route planning, and one of the rules for Guinness is that you have to ride pretty much in one direction, and you've got to ride a minimum of 18,000 miles, and you've got to also hit the other side of the world to have like Antipodean points. And so thinking about the route was quite important, because you've got to approve that with Guinness before you set off. So I was heavily involved with that, and we both really worked on the bike and the bike spec and making sure that was right. And then it was things like, what are we going to take with us? And we kind of both worked our way through that.
And I guess I was thinking about the sponsorship. We got lots of support from, not financial, but kind of in terms of kit and things. And I would write to people and ask them nicely for things.
Did that work out? Did you end up getting lots of good stuff?
Yes, we have been really, really well supported by Stolen Goat. Am I allowed to say these things?
Yeah, absolutely, because I love companies which are supporting women who are doing big challenges. So I think they deserve to get a shout out.
Well, the fantastic thing about Stolen Goat is from the off, they were supporting the idea, and they loved the fact that we had a crazy idea, and they asked nothing in return, and they have supported us with kit all the way around the world, really, and just support in. They just love what we were doing, and we got to know them as a company. They're a small company, and they've just been brilliant, and their kit is also really, really good, which helps. So that, and we were sponsored for the tyres. How do you pronounce that? Schraub.
Sponsored the tyre.
So they gave us lots of tyres, and so there's lots of and the bike company JD Tandems helped us with the finances toward the bike, and that, which was fantastic.
Yeah, we also managed to secure some travel insurance, and
yes.
which was kind of hilarious in some ways, because it was from Saga, because we're both over 50, and so we managed to get our travel insurance for our world record from Saga.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, unfortunately, we never had to use it, so that was even better. But they were very supportive. Yeah, so there were lots of people. We didn't, get any money as such, but a lot of useful things. And then our bedding and things we got too. So it was good.
Sleeping bags.
Our bedding, our
so
sleeping
taking a mattress on the back of the bag.
Those blow up little mattresses, and we got all of that at cost, and the bags. And so we, all sorts of little bits and pieces were incredibly helpful, and they all added up, really, didn't they?
Yeah, no, they did, definitely.
How much did you need to save up? What was your budget for the trip? Did you have a daily budget that you're working towards? Did you have a set amount of money that you went out with? Did you have an emergency fund? How did you finance it?
I don't think we were that specific, but I think we aimed at spending less than £50 a day, which we managed pretty much every day.
Between the two of you?
Apart from a very expensive omelette once in France, which it kind of blew the budget. But
it blew the day's budget. Kat is a thrifty rabbit, and she was appalled, but it did cost us a lunch nearly £50.
Was the omelette worth it?
It was so
for the most part. Yeah, no, it really wasn't. But for the most part, we were able to, keep the budget pretty much under control. And across Europe, we camped, and that, kept costs down. We didn't around Southeast Asia, but obviously it's much cheaper to live. And it was during the monsoon rain, so camping wasn't really an option. And then we camped sort of on and off, across sort of Australia and the States and things. So we kept, we were sort of, pretty economic with the amount that we spent.
And I think pretty much every night I was able to wangle a bit of a discount wherever we stayed on the whole.
Do you both have families?
Yes. Yep, we do.
Yeah.
So, Kat, maybe what was that like when you having this chat with your partner and telling your children that this is what you were going to be doing? What were their thoughts? How did those go down?
I don't have children, but my partner was really, really supportive of the sort of challenge, I guess, and that was great. It was good to have that at home, and of course, it is easy now to keep in touch, using technology around the world. So obviously, it was hard, being away for so long, but also, it is easy to keep in touch, and it's important to have a sort of supportive family.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about the bike and the tandem. So I'd love to know how A, you named the bike, and B, how did you figure out, were you swapping over who was riding in front and who was riding behind, or was there just positions that you just stuck to?
So we stick to the positions. I mean, the bike's sort of set up very much around, our own sort of personal riding positions and everything. And, so I pilot and Raz Stokes. So I'm at the front and Raz is at the back of the bike. And, and that worked really well. We managed to get around the world without falling off, which was kind of a bonus. The bike's called Alice, isn't it, Raz?
It is. It's we had a competition. We're both in the Cowley Road Condor Cycle Club, and we had a competition in that. And somebody suggested Alice because it stands for Awesome Ladies in Cycling Extravaganza, or words or something like that. So we like that, and also being in Oxford, Alice is Alice in Wonderland. But most importantly, Kat likes Mad Alice from Luther. So all in all, there are lots of different reasons to call her Alice.
I'd love to talk about maybe some of the magical moments that stand out for you. So Raz, what's a magical moment from the trip that was just an incredible highlight?
Do you know what? There were so many. Every single day was just brilliant. But I think one of my favourite times was cycling down the Big Sur in America. The sunsets were just spectacular and the sunrises were just beautiful. And the freedom and space and loveliness of it all is just overwhelming.
What about you, Kat? What was your magical moment?
I think I could pick a magical moment from, certainly from every country, because I think all the countries were different and there was something amazing about all of them. And, we've often said that every day was a new adventure and, you didn't quite know what you were going to see. And but I think, there's probably a few highlights, really. I think when we set off and we're going across Europe and we got to Italy, because we went to some of the tourist places, which a lot of the time on the trip we didn't actually hit any tourist places at all, but it was amazing going over the causeway into Venice. That was fabulous. The sun was sort of going down. We had some amazing sunsets on the Croatian coast. I think Turkey was actually, because it was so different, coming into Istanbul in the traffic was just utterly amazing. And I think then some of the cycling we did in the Nullarbor Desert, we both said was though it was incredibly hard, in some ways it was kind of a standout for the trip because of that hardness and because of how much you were really in the wilderness and how far away from everybody else you were when we were riding across the desert.
So a lot of the time, obviously, you're spending 24 hours a day together, whether that's riding or camping. Did that test your friendship? What was the challenges of being part of a tandem, being part of a team? Did you have any communication issues or moments when you just got annoyed with one another? Are you still friends today?
You know what? We communicate exceptionally well, especially when you're not really happy. I think our actual friendship was never under any scrutiny, or that was never in jeopardy at all. I think we have learnt about each other and ourselves a lot on the trip, and we know that the times we had our moments or were cross particularly about something, it was not with each other. It was never with each other. It was about being hungry and tired and hungry. And I think those times, we actually, funnily enough, as it happened, we kind of were able to look after each other, but not take it absolutely personally. But we had more laughs and more fun than I could possibly explain. And the times that we did have a difficult time were absolutely kind of so minimal, actually, weren't they, Kat?
Yeah, no, definitely. And as I say, it was very much linked to hunger and fatigue, when you're sort of feeling a bit low. And I think we got to know each other so well, we could kind of anticipate when, actually let's stop and get something to eat. And, we need a bit of a break, because you could kind of feel it coming on. And I think it's really working as a team when you're doing something like that and watching out for each other.
To be fair, we know each other that well. I know Kat's does not just come on. It's immediate and instant when she needs feeding, and you know exactly when you need to stop because she starts swearing. Whereas mine is a bit more insidious and benign, and it's, I'm a bit more kind of, should we do this now?
Just really awkward is the best description. So and then what do you have some food? No. Well, you need some food. No. So it's that sort of stuff. So you've got to kind of persuade Raz to eat, and and then you manage it, and then she's back to her usual self.
Whereas Kat is just basically swearing at me, and I can put something into her hand and she'll eat it, and she go, "Okay, shall we go now?" And we go, "Yeah, that's fine." So absolutely instant. And so it was never a question of our friendship, actually.
Yeah. So I'd love to know one thing that you learned about yourself and one thing that you learned about the other person. So Kat, what did you learn about yourself from doing this journey, from doing this challenge?
I think, I suppose, I'm in my 50s, I don't think there was any sort of, I didn't really know that about myself. I mean, I think it brings certain things to the fore, and I think that I can be, what I know is that I can be very determined and, and I think in order to do this, we had to be pretty single-minded and determined, because we got on the bike every day, with the intention of riding, between 1,800 miles. And we did it day after day after day. We had very, very few days off. And, and I suppose that, is a test in some ways. And, I know that I could certainly, I did that. And, and obviously, feel very pleased that I was able to have that. In terms of, with Raz, I mean, I guess, we really learn. I suppose we learned lots of things about each other and how, we to play to each other's strengths and the kind of support. And I know that Raz can persuade anybody to, she can get a discount from anybody. So she can persuade anybody to sort of do anything. So just be warned. We went round, around India. We managed to get sort of all sorts of discounts from hotels and things like that. And I just sent Raz would just go in. She'd just be sort of sent into the hotel to sort of work her magic, and she'd come out with having persuaded them to upgrade the room and give us a free so and so. And so just be warned. So everybody be warned. If you sit next to Raz at anything, you probably end up giving away your firstborn child or something like that. So.
And I learned, about me, and I think I learned what I can be like when I'm hungry and tired, and how I can try to work with myself and sort myself out. I also think that what we both were tested beyond test. When you have an ordinary day, which is you're cycling kind of 80 miles, and then something happens that you have to push yourself for another, not physically, not on the bike, but we then ended up in the wrong place and the wrong address, and we had to kind of just go on for another couple of hours. And that time, I think we should be both really quite proud of ourselves, because we ended up pushing a bike through the sand for 3 miles in the pitch black, not knowing where we're going, and just those kind of things. I'm really delighted that we could do it, and we didn't give up. And I don't think you often get a chance to have yourself quite so tested at times. And then in the morning, of course, we had to push it all the way back, three miles, but at least we could see where we're going. But what I learned about Kat was she is the most awesome person. She is incredibly determined, single-minded, and the funniest person I think I know. And just brilliant to be with. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's all I can say about you, Kat.
Yeah, well, ditto.
Oh, I love this. So when you're riding on the bike, would you listen to podcasts? Would you listen to music? Would you listen to audiobooks? Would you plug in headphones or anything?
Well, funny thing is, when we were leaving, we both allowed ourselves one luxury item, and Kat chose. What did you choose, Kat?
Espresso maker. You can't leave home. It's like a little mini one. It wasn't a full plug-in job.
Yeah, no.
That's what I was thinking.
It's just a mini espresso maker. And I remember, there was times in the Nullarbor Desert in Australia where it was 45 degrees. We were covered in flies, but we did actually stop for an espresso. So,
no, that was absolutely essential. That was just brilliant. And I chose a mini speaker, Bose speaker, which went on my handlebars, so we could both listen to the same thing. We did try headphones to start before we left, but I'm completely deaf and Kat is very sensitive, so we couldn't get the volume.
I hear at a normal level.
okay, so maybe I'm just a tad deaf, so have it louder, but that was completely did not work. So having this speaker on the handlebars was brilliant. And we did listen to podcasts, we listened to music, we listened to books,
Lots of books.
And it was, we listened to a book about a pandemic even before the pandemic happened, and we gave up after the first chapter because it was too depressing.
But we also listened to the whole series of Harry Potter and various other things. So it was quite nice. It passed the hours on the bike sometimes.
That's really good.
Fantastic. So Raz, tell us more about America, where you started, where you finished, what it was like over there in the States, and then we'll move on to Kat to Europe. So Raz, tell us about America.
Well, Kat can definitely jump in, but we started in San Francisco and then we went down the Big Sur, and then we followed the road very close to the Mexican border, and we went into Mexico for one day. And then we went straight across to Miami. So what America was like was actually mind-blowing. Such contrast to anywhere we'd been before. From a point of view of the drivers, we just left New Zealand, where the drivers weren't altogether very obliging and very polite about cyclists. The car were so different, and it gave us space and didn't hoot and didn't swear at us, which was nice in America. The roads were great. The distances we travelled were good. We went through some extraordinary places, some really harsh areas, some very Trump land, which was quite eye-opening. And we went all the way down. We went into Mexico. So we left America and went into Mexico for a day, and then had real difficulties getting back into America. But we did. But Mexico was beautiful and so friendly, the people. But also, it's just a very harsh contrast. The food, Kat will definitely jump in here, but the food was really challenging. I think nothing like we were used to. It's very fast food, junk food, white bread. In some places, incredibly sparse, and we just actually couldn't get anywhere. Restaurants, hotels had closed down in some of the towns we went through. There's no food. And really, it's just to get food in a petrol station. And it was pretty awful, actually, real food deserts. And it was further complicated by the fact that we were sponsored, because we used to stop initially in a McDonald's for tea or coffee and breakfast and pancakes and things for breakfast. And then somebody sponsored us £500 to stay out of McDonald's, even the toilets in McDonald's, which meant in some towns...
For our charities, not for us.
Yeah. I think we thought about keeping that because we suffered, which meant that, staying out, and sometimes McDonald's were literally the only place to eat. We had a lot of deep conversations about how we cheat or not cheat or give up the money, or anyway, we didn't cheat and we didn't give up the money. So we did get that for our charities, but it did mean things were kind of very difficult at times. But the loveliest place we stopped, and we had Alice surfaced, so we stayed in New Orleans, didn't we? And that was we had a lovely, it felt like a holiday in itself. There was a carnival on, and we had a brilliant few days in New Orleans, and then went down to Miami. But the contrast in some across the country, from the poorest, the most bleakest places to going down Miami, and the houses were utterly immaculate, and they had so many gardeners trimming hedges, and there was literally not a leaf out of place. It was just such a contrast, but I loved it. But it was fantastic.
We stayed in one of the most unusual places as well in the Arizona desert. You might want to tell that story.
Which one in the desert? Yeah, so we stayed,
the school bus.
The school bus, yeah. Well, there was, again, nowhere to stay. We're on the border of Mexico and the Arizona desert, and the hotels looked so cool. They were just beautiful colours and things, but they were all completely full, so we couldn't stay anywhere. And it was cold, really, really, really cold. So we didn't want to camp particularly. But we were in one cafe, and this chap gave us a name of somebody who might be able to put us up or put up with us one or the other way. So we gave her a call, and she said, yeah, no, come along. So we cycled, but by the time we got to her, it was pitch black, and there were no road markings and nowhere to find. And she was hollowing in the going, ooh, and we found her by her call, really. And when we arrived, she had very big dogs. It was just the most amazing place. She'd practically built it herself. She lived in one room of a caravan, of a kind of a garage, wasn't it, with everything in it. And the ceiling was stuffed with hay, and it was extraordinary. And she took us around the back of her house, and there was a school bus, and she let us stay in there. But I honestly don't think anything had changed in the bus, including the bedding and any of it, since 20 years possibly. And fortunately we had our own sleeping bags and things that we buried ourselves under this whole big pile of covers, because it was so cold, so cold. But she was amazing, and she gave us bananas for breakfast.
So from Miami, you then, I believe, you flew over to Morocco. Is that right, Kat?
Yeah, so we were on the way back then. So I guess we had we had a really short few days in Morocco before we came back to Europe. But just talking about Europe in general, we obviously set off in the UK, and we crossed France down to that sort of French Riviera coast, which was lovely. We went through Nice, and I don't know if you recall, but this time last year there was a big heat wave in Europe, and we managed to sort of set off right at the point of that heat wave. Anyway, we carried on through Italy, and there's some real highlights there, because we went past Leaning Tower of Pisa, which was I think the only day that it actually rained, and it was freezing that day, but also through Florence and Venice, and then down the Croatian coast, and then we went into Albania. So we went through Montenegro and then into Albania. And Albania was a real sort of contrast. It really felt as if we were heading towards Asia when we got there. And one of the challenges there was this big trench at the side of the road where I think they'd been trying to put broadband in, which meant that if we let the bike fall into this trench, which was just where you wanted to cycle, we'd have probably come off. And that's my abiding memory of Albania, trying to stay out of this trench. And then I guess we headed across. We went into Macedonia, and then into Greece, and then to Istanbul, and that was really sort of our journey across Europe. And there was just so many highlights. I mean, sometimes we'd just be, traveling through one country in one day, but you could really see the different sort of cultures in those different countries. And people were very, very friendly and supportive when they saw us on the bike. And we had some funny camping stories as well, because we were trying to camp, and, particularly on the Croatian coast, I don't think people really wanted to sleep. They wanted to party. So that was a bit of a challenge for us at time. And and then I think on the way back we left America, as you say, into Morocco, and then we had to cross Spain. This is winter, so Spain, it's quite a challenge really, because it's quite mountainous, and it was really then when we started hearing about the pandemic and realized that we needed to sort of head quite quickly. So we managed to fortunately get out of Spain just before it went into lockdown, because Spain was one of the countries that banned cycling. And then we got up through France. Everything was closing in France, and managed to finally get out of France on the day of lockdown, and onto the second to last passenger ferry back, before we returned to the UK.
Oh, had you booked tickets, or was it just a case of riding and showing up and keeping your fingers crossed?
We had tickets, but for later on that week. So we fortunately, I mean, the ferry was full from a vehicle perspective, but because we were just on a bike, they managed to fit us in, because they were just trying to get everybody back, knowing that the travel ban had come into place. So we were lucky, really. I mean, if we'd have turned up with a vehicle other than a bike, we certainly wouldn't have got on.
It sounds like it's quite sort of a stressful end to the journey, like those sort of final couple of weeks, racing to get out of Spain, racing to get back across the channel. How was that?
I suppose we'd heard about the pandemic probably when we were in the States and in certainly Morocco. And I guess initially, like everybody else, we were thinking of it as a sort of a serious flu outbreak, I suppose. And it was only really when we were starting to cross Spain that we started to think of it and hear about it in a very different light. We'd arranged to return to the UK on the 21st of March, and we'd arranged to have a bit of a celebration when we got back. And it soon became clear that we needed to really try and get back as soon as we could. And fortunately, we were very much ahead of our original schedule. So when we originally set off, we were just trying to beat the men's record by probably a day or so, which would have actually meant if we'd have been on that schedule, we would have been locked down in Spain. So I think coming through France was the biggest challenge, really, because all the cafes and restaurants were shut, which meant it was really difficult to eat during the day, and then all the accommodation was starting to close, and we just realised that we needed to get to the coast as soon as possible. And I think, we were lucky because we did manage to do that and managed to sort of get out before we got out on the day of the travel ban. And the challenge would have been, continuing to ride through France because exercising together had been banned that day. And obviously, on a tandem, you're exercising together. So I think, on reflection, we realise now how close it was. At the time, we were just too caught up in it to realise that, it was very much sort of touch and go as to whether we got out in time.
Yeah. Raz, what was it like for you finishing the journey, getting to the end? Yeah, what was that like?
I think that was really difficult, actually, because I wasn't ready to stop. I was having such a fantastic time. I just would have liked to have carried on cycling. And I think, obviously, it was fantastic to see our friends and our family again, without a doubt. But having done that, I'd quite like to carry on cycling. I planned to have a month off to see, again, my brothers and to see everybody and take it easy before I went back to work. And I was back at home for less than a week. We quarantined ourselves for 2 weeks, but I was back less than a week before I got a call to say, what are you doing tomorrow? We've got a team meeting. Will you join? And I did. I didn't know at that point even how to do these virtual meetings, so I joined late. I work with some neurologists. I joined kind of mid-conversation, and not one of them said, "Oh, hello, welcome back." They carried on as if, without a breath, giving me patients to see and to talk to and do. And then that was it, really. I was back at work, and so that was a bit of a shocker. And then, of course, when I came out of kind of our own quarantine, I was back in the hospital with all the COVID. I didn't even know what PPE was. I was so out of the loop. So it was a steep learning curve about how to live with this disease and virus, and and from then on, just been working every day, really.
Yeah. And what about Kat? How was it for you going back to sort of normal life? Because you mentioned at the very start of the interview that you were actually, you were interviewing for a job while you were in America, and you had a job to go back to. How quickly did you go back into work? What was it like making that transition from being on the road with Raz, cycling every day, to, not being together and, back in a corporate environment?
What we'd had on the bike was that sort of total freedom, we're out all day, sort of experiencing somewhere different in the world and meeting different people. And then all of a sudden, we were in lockdown. And I know that's been a challenge for many people because it's been so restrictive. And then I started the job probably just a few weeks from getting back. And, up until I think it was last week, I hadn't actually met anybody face to face. So it was kind of funny going into a role where, you're running an organization. I still haven't actually been to the offices yet. I've done everything from my home, all based on sort of virtual calls and calls around the world, because it's a global organization. So I've met lots of people, but just not face to face yet.
Yeah. Ladies, I'm going to mix things up now. So I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions. Raz, if you'd like to answer first, and then Kat, if you then answer. There's about 10 of them. Are you both ready?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Are you morning or evening type of people?
Morning, and I'm normally always up at 7.
Evening. And Yeah, like to have a lie-in.
Oh, I like it. And Raz, do you have a morning routine?
Don't talk to me about the morning routine. Oh my goodness. Yes, this is not a quick fire question. This is a long question. Big morning routine. Definitely.
Yeah, and Raz used to get very stressed if she was sort of behind with the morning routine, which she often was, because in spite of being an evening person rather than a morning person, I was much more efficient in the morning than Raz, and she would fall behind and then
if I got behind, I did, because if Kat started putting the creams on, I knew I was behind, and then that was disaster, because she'd put the cream on and then pack it in a bag, and then I had to unpack it and put it on. So yeah, I tried. My biggest effort was trying to be ahead of Kat in the morning, so I get to the creams before her.
Suntan cream and chamois cream and various other creams.
Every other cream you need. So that would stress me.
And what about tea or coffee? What are you, Raz?
Oh, first thing in the morning, tea, then coffee, then coffee, and then tea in the afternoon.
So first thing in the morning, coffee, then tea.
Do you have a favourite movie?
Yes, Sliding Doors.
Yeah, I do. You changed your mind now.
No. What is that? It's a Lance. Hello. What's that film called?
It's that sort of night film, A Knight's Tale.
It is A Knight's Tale
with Heath Ledger.
Knight's Tale. Yeah. Yes, and Keith Ledger. Knight's Tale is my favourite film. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley in it, but also I like the action adventures like The Bournes and that sort of thing.
I like it. What about your favourite book?
I think now the Harry Potter series. I think I'd be cat to that.
No, mine are definitely the sort of Harry Potter. That's my mastermind subject, Harry Potter.
And it is true. I quizzed Kat a lot on Harry Potter, and she is very good.
What about music? Favorite song or genre or album?
I like Beautiful South, and yeah. Although I like all sorts.
Yeah, I like a mixture. I mean, there's certainly some stuff from Adele and Paloma Faith, and I used to like U2, and Coldplay. So lots of different, depending on the mood, really.
Raz and Kat, would you say that you're more beach or more mountain?
Mountain.
Oh, mountain with a bit of beach. Mountain.
No beach, mountain.
What about food? What's your favourite type of food to eat at home, and what's your favourite type of food to eat while you were cycling?
Well, the one thing that did change for me is I left a rampant carnivore and came back a pescatarian.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, think food for me, my favourite food before I set off would definitely be a curry. And having had curry 3 times a day in India, when I got back, it definitely wasn't curry.
No.
What do you like to do for rest and relaxation?
Rest and relaxation, I like to ride my bike.
Yeah, nothing. I like to ride my bike.
Ladies, what would be the words that you try and live your life by?
Just do it. Anything's possible.
Yeah, follow your dreams.
Do you just want to share maybe the website or social media links so that people can follow along and find out more information about the two of you?
We've got a website, which is www.tandemwow. So tandem, sort of women on wheels, so WOW.com. We also are on social media. So we're on Facebook at Tandem Wow, Instagram, Tandem Wow, and Twitter on Tandem Wow. And we did a daily blog whilst we were away, which we posted on Facebook, and with lots of pictures that Raz could take when she was on the back of the bike. And so if people want to read about the journey, they can. There's some blogging on the website, but also on Facebook, and obviously lots of pictures as well on Facebook and Instagram.
Raz and Kat, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast to share more about your journey and the highlights. I'll make sure I add all of the links into the show notes so that people can come and follow along and read more about your incredible journey. Hey tribe, I hope you enjoyed the episode with Kat and Raz. What an absolute inspiration, and a massive congratulations again for getting the new Guinness World Record for being the fastest people to cycle around the world on a tandem bike. My name is Sarah Williams. I'm the host of the Tough Girl podcast and the founder of Tough Girl Challenges, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. If you would like to support the Tough Girl podcast, then please do go and visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast, and you can sign up as a patron. All new patrons will get their name on a dedicated patrons page on the Tough Girl website. All female patrons $5 and above are invited to join the closed Facebook group, the Tough Girl Tribe. So just got a couple of recommendations for you. If you are really interested in cycling, then go and take a listen to Vedangi Kulkarni. She's the youngest woman to have circumnavigated the world on a bicycle. 160 days to pedal 29,000 kilometers across 14 countries. So that episode came out on the 22nd of September. Vedangi is also an adventure traveler and expedition manager, and she shares more about her early years. So when she was 17 years old, she decided to cycle across the Himalayan passes. Absolutely incredible. And she shares more about how that challenge really helped to change her perspective and worldview. She also shares more about how she got into cycling, how she planned for expeditions, how her passion for the outdoors has grown, who her female role models are, why she wanted to take on this challenge. And she also shares more about some of the quite difficult situations that she was in, from being in Canada and dealing with a grizzly bear to being in Spain and dealing with a mugging. So that's an absolutely incredible episode. Just want to say a massive thank you to Surrey Mum Runs, who is on Instagram. There was a post on Instagram about, looking for recommendations for podcast episodes. And Surrey Mum Runs shared, I listen to the Tough Girl Challenges podcast. Each episode is an interview with the different inspiring women doing some amazing challenges. It's very motivating, but can be dangerous if you're easily influenced. After one episode, I came back and signed up for a marathon. Whoop, whoop, whoop. That is exactly what we want to be hearing. So this is what I want the Tough Girl Challenge. This is what I want the Tough Girl podcast to do for you. I want you to listen to it. I want you to be inspired by it. I want you to think about, how can I take away these learnings and how can I apply them to my own life? Now, obviously, not everything is going to apply to you, but it's about picking and choosing and building up your own toolkit so that you can, take these top tips and pieces of advice and, apply them to your goals, your dreams, your visions, and go after what you want. So keep going after your dreams and your goals. Take that first step today. Do what you need to do to take you one step closer. The Tough Girl podcast is all about motivating and inspiring you. So please take action and make it happen for you. So next week, we're going to be speaking with Sarah Safari, who is aiming to be the first Iranian to climb the 7 summit. She's only got Mount Everest to go. Sarah is also going to be sharing more about trekking 335 miles across the largest ice cap in the world, Greenland.